Test. Test 1, 2, 3.
Where? Matt's here. You're looking at me funny. Roll. Yep. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Hi, Grandma. Oh, she's hands up. Just in one of these three pieces.
That's what she did. She got me. She was screaming because she couldn't touch it with her. And then she goes, Hannah, do you have any shoes? We're on the same side. She doing
Fine. You just had to get from the car and.
I put paper towels in this one. Paper towel.
Hi.
Right, yes. Hey, Brendan. Nice to see you, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you, did you come back to college or are you guys on board this? No,
Okay.
I'm getting impressions about what's going on.
Hello?
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. I'm Jeffrey Goodwin. I am a district court judge. I preside in Snohomish County District Court. I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here for this ceremony today. And I'm pleased that you could join us. I'm honored to be here presiding over this event today. This is a time-honored tradition that you're witnessing here today, this investiture. It's a ceremonial welcoming of a new judge to the bench. And today we honor Judge Matt Baldock. I want to take a few moments and introduce you to some of the folks that are joining us here today, my colleagues on the bench, Judge Langben, Judge Moriarty, Judge Okrent, Judge Scott, Judge Alexander, Judge Apple, Judge Steffner, Judge Larson, and Judge Downs. My district court colleagues here with me today are Judge Bowie, Judge Howard, Judge Rancourt, our presiding judge, Judge Leo, Judge Francis, and Commissioner Millette. We have visiting judges joining us as well. From King County District Court, Judge Gelson. From Linwood Municipal Court, Judge Buffew. I want to thank all of them for taking the time to join us here today for this important event. I also want to recognize some elected officials that have joined us here. We tried to get everybody. I apologize if I didn't see you come in or Kathy didn't. I know that Adam Cornell is here. Adam's our former prosecuting attorney. He's seated right there. Thank you. I know that Council Member Sam Lowe is present with us as well. Thank you. And I know that Jason Cummings, our prosecuting attorney, is present as well. Thank you very much for being here with this. I also want to acknowledge some of the friends and family that Matt has, that Judge Baldock has invited here with him today. His wife of 26 years, Sarah, is present with us. His son, Brendan, is present as well. His twin daughters, Hannah and Kate, are here. His parents, Dave and Priscilla, and his Aunt Becky are here, representing his hometown of Kashmir, Washington. His brother, Steve, and his wife, Nikki, mother-in-law, Connie, and what Judge Baldock tells me is his favorite brother-in-law, Ben, who is joining us as well. Aunt Penny is joining us. And then other family members and friends are joining remotely, including Ohana from Hawaii, family from Hawaii, and a substantial East Coast contingent here to celebrate this event with us today. Judge Baldock will be joining a long list of judicial officers that have presided in Department 4 of the South Division. More recently, Judge Ellen Fair, Judge Carol McRae, and Judge Doug Fair. Doug and Ellen are enjoying a well-deserved vacation and regret they can't be here today. But Doug took the time, Judge Fair took the time to write this to be read to you here for today. I'm sorry I cannot be here for Judge Baldock's swearing in. However, I'm on a vacation that was planned well over a year ago. I do want to pass on that I'm thrilled that Judge Baldock will be taking over in Department 4. He is smart, hardworking, open-minded, flexible, compassionate, and has a skill set that will complement the bench. He joins an excellent team of judges, administrators, and staff. His presence will only make that group better. We're lucky to have him, and I look forward to watching his personal and professional growth over the coming years. Welcome to Snohomish County District Court. Any of you know Judge Fair, you know how sincere his comments are in regard to Judge Baldock. Judge Baldock is joining the best group of judges that I have ever served with. I've been doing this job for almost 20 years, and this is the best cadre of colleagues I've ever served with. Our administrators and staff are smart, thoughtful, and dedicated, and we're extremely fortunate to welcome you to Snohomish County District Court. We're excited for you to join this dedicated group of community leaders. I'd like to invite Judge Downs to come down, please, and say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Michael Downs. I am retired Judge Michael Downs. I retired 5 years ago, and quite honestly, it's an honor and a privilege not only to be here, but it's an honor and a privilege to even be remembered for somebody to ask me to be here. So I'm thrilled for Matt, and I'm thrilled for Matt's family. I didn't know you had twins, by the way. I have twins too. It's a huge deal for the candidate, obviously. It's a huge deal for the person that's getting to be the judge, but it's just about equally, if not equally, for the family members who are here to watch this. I can't speak about Matt's family because I've never met anybody before, but I know people in my family used to think, wow, man, how'd that guy ever get to be a judge? How did that manage to work out? Because our family they know us from when we were 2 and, you know, doing things we should not have been doing. So congratulations to the family as well. I want to thank the district court judges for allowing me to be here to speak. It's very kind of you. I want to thank the county council for having the wisdom and the foresight to appoint Matt to this job. I know they had more than one choice. I know they put a lot of time and a lot of effort into their decision-making, and I'm pretty confident, very confident that they made the right decision. They made the right choice. Matt Baldock will not let them down, and he will not let down the people of Snohomish County either. I didn't know Matt as when I was a lawyer and he was a lawyer. I didn't know him. I can't remember what year he started working in the prosecutor's office where I used to work. I never worked directly with him. So my first recollection of Matt Baldock is one fateful day when someone had brought a search warrant affidavit to me to review and to sign, certainly with the expectation that I'd sign it. And I read it and I said, no, I'm not going to sign this. And I, explained that perhaps they could consult with the prosecutor and see if they chose to, what additional information might be able to be added. So before too terribly long, Matt Baldock showed up at my door. And I could tell by his countenance that he didn't agree with the decision that I had made to not sign the warrant, was somewhat miffed, and probably thought I was being too conservative. But within the bounds of what's ethically allowed as a judge, I explained to him what my thought processes were. I explained to him how I perceived the deficiencies to be. And although he probably to this day doesn't agree with me, the next time I saw an iteration of that warrant, it had more information that a judge could rely on. It had more information that an appellate court could rely on if it ever got to that point. And he never griped about it. It was really interesting because I knew he didn't like what I did, but he didn't gripe about it. He handled it very respectfully. I have no idea how many lawyers in my career. I worked in this building for 35 years. I think I was sworn in some iteration of this room. Well, actually, this room didn't exist. But it was a long time ago. And I saw and worked with hundreds of lawyers. And you get to form some opinions about the people that you're working with. You get to form some opinions about the people who are appearing in front of you. You get to be able to figure out before terribly long, if they know what they're doing or if they don't know what they're doing. Well, I should put that a different way. If they know what they're doing or if they have a lot of room to improve is probably a better way to put it. And when I first started working with Matt, he's a pretty good lawyer. He seemed to know what he was doing. But as I worked with him over time, I had the chance to watch him grow. I had the chance to watch him go from being, the guy's a pretty good lawyer, to being really exceptional. And I don't throw the word exceptional around lightly. I can remember several cases that he had in front of me. One, I think, had to be tried more than once. I think it had to be tried more than twice. And ultimately, the jury reached a unanimous decision in the case. It was particularly difficult. It was excruciating for the family members to have to go through this, both, I'm sure, from the defendant's perspective and from the victim's perspective, who was the daughter of the defendant. It was very, very difficult. Matt handled the whole thing with grace and with dignity throughout. There's lots of chances to get, you have lots of opportunity in trials as a trial lawyer to start to lose your composure, or to start to get angry, or to start to lash out. He never once did that. And you could tell if he thought you were wrong about something. It's not, judges are wrong sometimes. I can't imagine that anybody thinks we're not. But he always handled it judiciously. When he came back to ask you to reconsider what you had just done, it wasn't in some, I was right the first time and you were wrong, so fix it attitude. He either had additional facts, or he had some additional reported case from the Court of Appeals or the State Supreme Court, and he made cogent arguments. And a fair amount of the time, in the end, he was correct. And if it's appropriate to reverse a ruling, then you should reverse the ruling. It's really what we should be doing here. I mentioned a few minutes ago that I have no idea how many lawyers I've worked with, how many lawyers I've had the opportunity to see. But I've seen some really good ones. I've seen some lawyers who, if they put them on TV to do closing arguments on TV, that this stuff would just blow you away, because in person, it blew you away. I had the occasion, not long before I retired, that Matt tried a very serious case in front of me, extremely serious case in front of me. And ultimately, the defendant was convicted. I had to wait until sentencing had occurred. And then I waited the appropriate amount of time before I could say anything to one of the lawyers who appeared in front of me. Because there are timelines for motions for new trials, and there's timelines for filing appeals, and there's all kinds of timelines. So I waited until I was comfortable that I could actually say something to the guy. And I called him up and I said, I want you to know that in my 35 years of being on the bench and being a trial lawyer in Snohomish County, and some time I spent in King County, and some time I spent as a student at the U.S. Attorney's Office, that's one of the best 5 closing arguments I have ever heard in any case, criminal or civil. And I meant it. I don't say things lightly to people. And when I talk about one of the best 5 closing arguments I've ever heard, I'm including Tony Savage. I'm including Michael McGee. The best civil argument I ever heard was by Sabrina Lehman at Brewer Lehman. I don't remember who the 4th person was, and the 5th person in no particular order was Matt. And his closing argument, I think, had a major impact on the outcome of that case. It was so well done. He went from being just this guy who was coming up respectfully telling me how wrong I was to refuse to sign the warrant, to one of the best arguments I've ever heard from anybody. I don't have any doubt at all that he's going to be an excellent judge, that he will listen to what people have to say, and that he will do what he believes to be the right thing to do under what the law is and under what the facts are, regardless of how it may be perceived. He will do what he believes to be right. So we're all very lucky. So congratulations.
Thank you, Judge Downs. I'd like to invite Adam Cornell to come forward, please.
Your honors. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt and your wonderful family. I'm so proud of you, Matt, and what you've achieved in this this next chapter in your life. And I'm looking forward to talking about that and what you've meant, most importantly, to me personally, but also to the many deputy prosecuting attorneys and now the elected prosecutor who are here today. But I want to start a little bit out of order. I heard Judge Downs talk about how, he didn't know who you were when you started. And Matt and I both started in the office in 2002, Matt about 6 months before I did. I can tell you, Judge Downs, that we certainly knew who you were. Michael Downs was the assistant criminal chief when Matt and I started in the office. And if you ever had the occasion as a brand new lawyer to go into Michael Downs' office, it was quite a terrifying experience. In fact, well, we won't go into it, but it was a very terrifying experience for me. So the whole point of my saying this, Your Honor, is that you were a fine deputy prosecuting attorney and a fine assistant criminal chief. And thank you for your service in both of those capacities. So as I said, Matt and I started in the office in 2002. Matt started in January. I actually know all these biographical details because Matt and I came up in the office together, Your Honor. So I'm going to fill in some of the blanks. But Matt started in January of 2002, and I started in August of 2002. And we lived about probably 2 or 3 miles apart when we started. And that began carpooling that lasted for most of the 20 years that Matt and I worked together. And the dialogue was about many different things, but of course, mostly it was complaining about admin. That is up until we became admin. But the relationship was really forged in those early years in the trenches and later in the trenches. And we got out of some of those trenches, I think, over the course of our time together. But the thing about Matt and my relationship with him is just the absolute respect and joy from me in having the privilege to work with Matt in so many different ways that I'm going to talk about briefly. I'm going to have a little biographical interlude here in just a second. But Matt was a musician and wanted to be a musician when he went to college, and in fact went to Whitworth on a music scholarship. And he was going to be a jazz drummer and did a little bit of that, I think, on some cruise ships. And in fact, if you were here in 2002 and happened to find your way to the prosecutor's office Christmas party at Legion Hall, you saw Matt playing drums with, I think, Judge Moore on vocals. I'm not sure who else was part of that. The late John Adcock, deputy prosecuting attorney, was, I think, playing bass. So I don't know if you're going to bring the band back together with Judge Moore or not, Matt, but the point of this musical reference is to say I don't know a lot about music, but I do love jazz like Matt. And when musicians get together and they play, the ones that play the best are the ones who hear music in the same way. They hear sound in the same way. And I believe that in our 20 years together that Matt and I really heard sounds in the same way. And that made for a lot of really good stuff for DPAs and a lot of really good stuff for victims and people who were accused of crimes. So I didn't want to fail to mention that. But the biographical interlude that I promised, Matt grew up in Kashmir, small town guy, started with a paper route and then worked in the orchards as a young person and went to college at Whitworth in Spokane, which is where he met Sarah all those many years ago. He graduated from Whitworth and came to the UW where he graduated from law school. I think was in a class with one of our judges here, and found his way to Snohomish County, thankfully, when he was working at the Court of Appeals for the late Judge Joseph Coleman in Division I. And thanks to the late Ken Schiffler, who was a staff attorney at the Court of Appeals, and Deanna Dawson, who was a former staff attorney, Matt found his way to the Snohomish County Prosecutor's Office, and that's where I met him back in 2002. You know what they say, what is past is prologue, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about the past insofar as it relates to what I think and what I know Matt will do as a judicial officer in this county. Matt's legacy as a deputy prosecuting attorney and as a criminal chief is a legacy of service. It's a legacy of sacrifice, and it's a legacy of innovation. And Matt's 20+ years of service to the prosecutor's office was really an example of how you do the job in the best way. And what I mean by that is that Matt was always focused, both as a deputy prosecutor and as criminal chief, on doing the right thing, not doing the easy thing, not doing the expedient thing, but doing the right thing and doing right by victims and doing right by those accused of crimes, doing right by his staff, and doing right by the attorneys that he worked with those many years. And I saw it myself, and I'm not going to do a Matt Baldock's greatest hits because we'd be here all night, and we're not going to do that. But I am going to talk about a few things cases throughout Matt's career that I think really exemplify the highest sort of ethic in the profession of prosecution. And I want to start with what I said, where you don't do the easy thing, you do the right thing. Many of you may not remember, some of you will, that when Matt was a new attorney, so Matt had been around for 4 or 5 years like me, Matt was asked to co-chair the murder prosecution of a police officer. There is one living attorney in this state who has prosecuted a police officer for murder. The late John Adcock was first chair of the Meade prosecution with Matt, but Matt's the only person, as far as I know, in the last 30 years that has tried a police officer for murder. And I say that because Matt was brand new in the office. And I can tell you that there was not a lot of support among many in the law enforcement community for what he and Deputy Prosecutor John Adcock were doing. And in fact, I know because I was in the courtroom and I would see a line of police officers who would come into the courtroom and would stare down John Adcock and Matt Baldock because they deigned to prosecute a police officer for murder. Matt was brand new in the office. He had his whole career ahead of him. Getting ahead as a prosecutor isn't, you're not going to do that by prosecuting cops for murder. But it didn't matter to Matt because it wasn't about getting ahead in the office. It was about doing the right thing and meeting the obligation to do justice in this community. And that's exactly what Matt did. He also he prosecuted the first prisoner on prisoner rape case under the Prison Rape Elimination Act. That was also not the most popular thing to do, to bring an inmate who people may have all sorts of, bad ideas about, to come in as a victim and testify about being raped. But Matt did that, not because it was like the fashionable thing to do, but because it was the right thing to do. I talked about innovation. Matt has done so many innovative things as both a trial attorney and as my chief criminal deputy, starting with Matt's prosecution of the first case that went to trial using genetic genealogy. I'm happy to say, if you go on IMDb, that Matt Baldock is probably the only judge in the county that has an IMDb credit. So look it up. But that kind of innovation is work and it's sacrifice. And I know the many late nights that Matt spent with victims, with the victims of the Talbot crime, but innumerable other victims of crime. And the impact that he had on their lives in those cases, but also the impact that he had on people who were accused of crimes. In the special assault unit, there's a lot of cases, there's a lot of heartbreak, and there's a lot of declines. And there are a lot of difficult conversations with victims and their families about why we just can't prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. The easiest thing is to be a hero in every case, but prosecutors can't be heroes all the time. They have to say no, and they have to be able to explain themselves and do that under the white hot light of public scrutiny. And that's a lot of what you all do on a daily basis. And you have to make decisions that are the right decisions, not the decisions that are the popular decisions. And I have seen Matt do that time and time again. Of course, when he became my chief criminal deputy, talk about luck, 2 weeks before the pandemic. So Matt joins the leadership team as chief criminal deputy, and we have the pandemic. And then there's the racial reckoning after the murder of George Floyd. Then there's the Great Resignation. Then I forgot about the Blake decision. It seemed like we were getting punched in the face every couple months or more. And Matt was always there as a steady presence, as a calm presence, as a positive presence, but somebody who could think outside the box. And I think about how Matt responded to the Blake decision particularly, and came to my office and wanted to make sure that we got everybody who was in custody on a simple felony possession case out of custody so that we could do right by this decision. Just one example of his innovation and responsiveness to the needs of the community, and frankly, doing what the reviewing courts asked him to do. And, you know, there was a lot of heat for that as well from lots of different quarters, but we could never cede our ethical obligation to do justice to any other cause or to any other reason. And I'm so proud of Matt, how you got us through those challenges during the time that you were my chief criminal deputy. And I know that it will serve you well. I think it goes without saying it, all those things will serve you well on the bench. So it's really a legacy that is going to live on as a deputy prosecutor in your words, in your deeds, but it's a legacy that will live on in all the people in this room who were part of your office. Your legacy lives on in me. And I feel damn lucky to have known you in the role that you have served as a deputy prosecutor. But I'm really looking forward to the role that I'm going to serve now, not being a practicing attorney and being your friend. And I'm really looking forward to that, because the thing you got to know about Matt Baldock on top of all this is he's a damn fine man. So I'm going to step down, but Matt, to an homage or an ode or a pilgrimage or something or other to your love of jazz, I want to finish with something that Miles Davis said. And by the way, today is Sonny Rollins' birthday, for those of you who are jazz aficionados. But Miles Davis said, and the context here is, Miles Davis started out doing a lot of really soft stuff when he was a jazz artist. He played a lot of ballads. And of course, later it was bebop, and it was a lot of fusion, and it was a lot of like really crazy stuff that I don't particularly like. Maybe Matt likes it. But Miles Davis was asked, Miles, why did you stop playing ballads? Because that's what everybody wanted. And Miles said, why did I stop playing ballads? Because I loved playing ballads. And what that means to me is that Matt loved being a prosecutor, but it's time to make some new music, and it's time for some new bandmates. And I can tell you that I'm sure there are going to be some good tunes along the way, but I know that your former colleagues in the prosecutor's office will be tapping their toes to some of your old tunes. Thank you.
Judge Baldock, will you please join me up front? Did we decide your position 3?
I think so.
I think so too. Raise your right hand. I, Matthew David Baldock,
I, Matthew David Baldock,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of Washington,
of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties
perform and discharge the duties
of the office of District Court Judge, Position 3,
of the office of District Court Judge, Position 3,
for my term,
for my term,
according to the law
according to the law
and the best of my ability.
and the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Another really important tradition with these investitures is the robing. And that's a process where family members are going to come forward and help Judge Baldock for the first time here in front of all of you don the robe that he will wear in his new position. So if you folks would like to come forward and robe Judge Baldock.
How do I do this?
It's a lot of that. No, this. Okay.
Too many helpers.
Yeah.
Here we go. Thank you.
Judge Baldock, the floor is yours.
Well, I will say, I was talking to Judge Goodwin about this this morning. In some ways, this feels very much like a full circle moment for me because as you've already heard, I started as a prosecutor here in Snohomish County 21 plus years ago. And my course through the office was like most prosecutors starting in district court. Easily the most formative part of my career as a prosecutor was in district court and more specifically in South District Court. There was a judge in Judge Dwyer at the time who took an interest in my career. He let me know that and took the opportunity to mentor me and steer me in the right direction and give me encouragement. And so I am extremely honored to be going full circle and filling a similar position in the same court, really with the same hope that I can have the same kind of impact on lawyers who appear in front of me to model for them what it's like to do this very important work the right way. I want to start by thanking folks, first of all, thanking the County Council for a very thoughtful and careful decision and for having the confidence in me to appoint me to this position. I wanted to thank my colleagues in the legal community for their support in the process and for helping to mold me as a lawyer throughout my career. As Judge Downs already mentioned, there was a lot to work on. And it certainly was not only through my own effort, but through the relationships and sharpening my edges through interaction and advocacy with and against other lawyers and in front of judges. So I very much appreciate how impactful this legal community has been to my formation as a lawyer. I want to thank my parents, Dave and Priscilla, for their love and support, for instilling in me early on and throughout my life a very clear understanding of right and wrong, for instilling in me a passion for learning, for curiosity, for questioning, and not just accepting things that are told to you as true, for testing, and for modeling for me what it's like to live with a heart for people, as a teacher, as a mentor, and with a heart for service. Both my parents are literally teachers, but also in every aspect of their lives, just have that spirit. And that's something that I had learned early on. I want to thank my children, Brendan and Kate and Hannah, for their love and support. Most importantly, for providing balance in my life. This is not an easy career that many of us have chosen, judges and as practicing attorneys before that. And it is critically important, I have found, and I still believe, to have balance, to have something entirely different from what it is we do here every day. And being able to go home and find that in these three children has meant an incredible amount to me. And it's been critical to my success, to my mental health, and to my joy in life. And so thank you for providing that. And then finally, thank you to my wife, Sarah. Did you know that was coming? Probably. Yeah. Sarah is an incredibly intelligent, strong woman. She is kind. She's an incredible mother. She is a naturally gifted teacher. She has patience that is endless. She's my best friend. She is my partner in life, and she's my anchor. She has had to listen to me complain and ramble and talk about work. We walk every morning for about 2.5 miles. We take our dogs out for a walk. And I was realizing with some amount of guilt recently, how many of those walks have been completely monopolized by I just talk about myself and about my problems and about my work. And she does it's often dark, so I don't know what her face looks like. But I can't tell you how grateful I am with your patience and your tolerance of me and your support. I want to talk a little bit about this transition point, and I'm sorry if this is self-indulgent. I generally don't like to talk about myself, and I don't like to take up other people's time, but it did occur to me, if I can ever get away with it, this might be one time when I have a little bit of an allowance. I am very proud of my career as a prosecutor, my career up to this point. I think it's incredibly important work. It's noble work. It impacts people in very significant ways. It comes with incredible responsibility and power in the discretion that you wield. And I like to think that I did a decent job, that I made good decisions for the right reasons, that I helped people when I could, that I was thoughtful in the approach I took. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have had a career that I enjoy. That's not true for everybody. There are a lot of people who every day get up and go to work because they have to pay the bills, and there's just no other way to do it. I never felt like that, ever, not a day. I felt energized, and I mean, there were good days and there were bad days, but I always enjoyed the work. And I felt extremely fortunate to have a job where I could say that, where the work felt fulfilling, was challenging, was interesting. So just the opportunity to serve this community for the past 21 years as a prosecutor I just feel extremely fortunate for that. And also to have the opportunity to do so with so many other thoughtful, hardworking, dedicated people. Judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, advocates, court staff, prosecutor staff, law enforcement, all people who are working really selflessly for the public good. And I have very much enjoyed those relationships, and again, feel fortunate to have done that good work with such good partners. I would have been happy to continue as a prosecutor, probably indefinitely, for as long as I could, or until retirement came along. But this opportunity that presented itself is one that I could not pass up. And I can't tell you how extremely excited I am for this opportunity, and how much I'm looking forward to this next chapter of my career. But at the same time, I'm honored, but I'm humble. And I want to wax philosophical for a minute to explain why I say that. I've been reflecting on this a lot. We took a vacation recently, and it gave me a lot of time to think and write and reflect on things. So this is the product of some of my musings. So I apologize if it waxes philosophical, but it has occurred to me in that thinking that this work that we do is fragile. This title that I now hold as a judge, that all of you hold as judges, is really only a title because people agree to recognize the office. In fact, the law that we practice, the work that we do, the thing that we research and argue about and go to school for, is really just a construct. It's the product. It's a human contrivance. It is the product of a social contract. It's people agreeing to be subservient or to subvert themselves to the law. Judges are selected and vested with authority to enforce that law, to enforce that contract, including in ways that have profound impact on people's lives and livelihoods and liberty. But it only works as long as people agree that it works, agree to be subordinate to it, agree to abide by that contract. And if you think that this is just, political philosophy, I would challenge you to look around the world at current events. Look at places like Myanmar, look at places like Niger, look at places like Washington, DC, frankly. Look at what happens when people decide that they're not going to abide by this contract, that they're not going to follow the law anymore. And so that's a scary proposition, just how fragile this system is. And so what it has prompted me to do, thinking forward, thinking about this new chapter in my career, is think about what I can do to honor the law and to honor that contract, and to instill confidence in me as a judicial officer and the system. And what I've concluded is it's a list that's going to be familiar to all of you judges, the things that we aspire to as judges, to hold the position with fairness, to hold the position with integrity, with objectivity, with thoughtfulness, with compassion, with a heart for people, and with humility. Through that kind of work on the bench, my hope, my promise to you, my commitment is to do that in a way that builds confidence, maintains confidence in me as a judge, in us as judges, and in the legal system. It's something I'm going to aspire to, and something that I won't always get right, but I will do my best. And I'm deeply honored to even be in this position to make that commitment to you. So thank you very much.
Before you sit down, please come join your colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Baldock and his family are pleased to invite you to a reception at the Angel of Winds Arena, Ballroom 3 on the second floor. And I'm told that if you enter off Hewitt, you'll go in and up the stairs and find Ballroom 3. With that, we are adjourned.